Oh boy. Well, hey, let's at least get let's get the juices flowing if you guys are cool with that. You guys good? Just
Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay. So first off, my name is Mike Dinsio. For those of you that don't know, I founded Next Level Consultants, and I put on this program because I am very passionate about startups. I love startups. I feel like we're in a time right now where startups are very, very hot, and a lot of people have a lot of questions. And in my mind, I wanted to assemble a team, which I did. These beautiful faces that are joining me today, to just drop their knowledge, really walk us through the process of a startup, and really we're going to be focusing on the beginning, and that is the first stages of a startup. And there's so much more to a startup, but understanding how the beginning and the mechanics of it can really empower doctors to just kind of take that next step. And so yeah, that's the vision for tonight. I'll get the opportunity to introduce all of these guys here when their time's up. But again, guys, thanks so much for joining me. I couldn't have asked for a better lineup tonight. I appreciate you guys. Okay, couple more things. So down below, you're going to see a few things for those of you that aren't super confident or familiar with Zoom. You're going to see a little comment box. It says Q&A down there. If you have some questions, I invite you to ask questions, because you're only going to get what you put into this. If you are just hanging out in your pajamas and just here for the show, that's cool. But I can't overestimate, or I can't overemphasize rather, how much more you could get from tonight if you engage with us. I mean, the four of us could talk about startups all night long and talk about what we want to talk about. But if you don't get involved, if you don't ask, then you're not going to get those answered. So please ask questions. There's also a chat box. I challenge you to ask your questions in the Q&A, so that versus the chat, but you can use the chat as well. I'm actually going to launch a poll here. I was going to wait a little bit longer until I saw attendees continue to come in, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'm launching the poll as we speak. It's going to help the panelists tonight understand who we're talking to, and how we can help you. Gives us a little information. Let's see here. That probably does it. So I guess let's just start this. Let's just kick this bad boy off. I guess the first step of a startup truly is real estate. It's finding that location and really being smart about getting that location dialed in. And I invited Mr. Steve Kikikis with Omni Practice Group to join us tonight. This dude has done a ton of transactions, and I know his passion for this industry is on another level. His integrity with how he approaches deals for the client, in my opinion, is just really something special. So with no further ado, Mr. Steve, why don't you take the reins if you can? Pull up your PowerPoint and get this program on the road. Can you guys?
Cool. I think you need to turn off your screen share, Mike.
Oh, okay. Can you guys see the poll questions, panelists? Can you see the answers? Is it just me? Guys?
I saw the questions come up, Mike. Yeah.
Okay, so you can see the answers. I'll announce those in a little bit. Steve, my friend, take it away, brother.
Well, hey, thanks for everybody for coming out. Appreciate it. I know it's not as hard as going out to a actual meeting, but we still do appreciate your time. It means a lot to us to have you all here. And Mike, thanks for putting this together. I know we all appreciate it. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Steve Kikikis. I work at Omni Healthcare Real Estate. I'm a commercial real estate broker that specializes in working with dentists. Real quick about Omni. Rod Johnston started Omni in 2004. He's a handsome guy there in the middle, tall, in case he's listening. It's a commercial real estate brokerage and practice transition brokerage. So we're helping people with startups, lease negotiations, getting your second practice, buying a building, selling a building, leasing a building, investment properties, and that type of stuff. And then Rod and his team are working with a lot of buyers and sellers across a lot of states, doing transitions, and it's growing like crazy. We're spreading out all over the country, and what everybody has seen this year, that it's busier than ever already. There's a lot of excitement going on in the market, and yeah. So what I wanted to go over is just a couple of things. You know, I'm not going to go over everything that we're going to do in a startup, but I wanted to go over the main points that I think are important. So with initial conversations, kind of determining where you want to be with demographics and your own personal requirements, picking that actual location once we're going down the path, a letter of intent, so submitting an offer and making a move on that space, lease negotiations, and then just what I've seen has been successful for doctors over the last 9 years where I've been working with them. There's just a few little things that not necessarily related to commercial real estate that I've seen and learned that has really inspired me to know that doctors can do startups and they can do them really well. And it's intimidating, but with a few factors incorporated, you can do really well at them. So the process, the very first thing that we're gonna do when we meet is probably nowadays have a phone call or a Zoom meeting. I wanna learn about your goals. I wanna learn about you. I wanna know, where are you from? How long have you been here? Have you grown up in Seattle? Are you new to the area? I wanna know what your goals are with the practice. You know, are you looking to get a real small office, a little 3-chair office? You're looking to get a regular 5-6 ops going? What's your specific requirements? You have a location already in mind. Some people will come to me and have no idea where they want to go, and that's totally fine. And other people will say, I want to be right here in this neighborhood on that street. And I said, okay, that's fine. Let's see what there is. We need to have that conversation and just start learning about you. Sometimes there's certain requirements you might have, like an oral surgeon's going to need a lot more ADA accessible things around their premise. They're going to be able to get a gurney in and out and around. A pediatric dentist wants good parking. You know, you don't want the kids coming across the plaza. You're going to try to get some parking nearby. And maybe they want a bunch of general dentists in the area. An orthodontist probably wants to be with a bunch of general dentists versus another general dentist, right? And so that's all the stuff I want to know about and learn about. And then we'll talk about the market. You know, like for instance, right now, what's going on? The market's absolutely crazy. Interest rates are historically low still. They're starting to creep up. There's a ton of space for lease in a lot of the markets. There's some motivated landlords and there's some not motivated landlords. Some landlords really want to do a deal with the dentist because they love that long-term security that you're going to be there probably for the next 25 years. Others, you know, if we're looking in South Lake Union, they want that cool yoga place or the Tom Douglas restaurant. You know, they don't care about the long-term lease. They are getting their money from above, and literally physically above, like the office spaces, the residential apartments and stuff like that. So they want to get a draw to their building versus have us in there. talk about trends and opportunities. Somebody might drop that, hey, I'm looking in Linwood. I love high visibility, and I just happen to know that there's an office available right now in Linwood with high visibility that you can lease up. And so the initial conversation is a big learning step for me about who you are, what you want to do, and how I need to move forward with finding the right opportunity for you, And from there, I want to know the next steps I really have is, who are you talking to? Because you're going to need to get financing. You're obviously talking to a broker. You're going to need to talk to me. You're going to need a good attorney to set up an LLC or a PLC soon. You want to get a contractor like Dustin on your team as soon as possible to go vet that space. Because when I'm looking at a space, okay, it's a space, great. Where's the visibility? Okay, it has good parking. I need a contractor. I need Dustin to come in there and say, oh, the HVAC is missing the thing that's going to be an extra 15 grand. That's get your contractor on board early. And designer, we want a designer on board as quickly as possible, just to do a little test fit on the space to get your wheels turning on how that space is going to look. Because that process can actually take quite a long time if you don't do it until you've signed a lease. So get a test fit going with a designer. I personally think it's important to check in with a CPA and a bookkeeping firm. Talk to them about your goals. They might have some ideas, and you're definitely going to need them once you're going. And then why not a dental consultant, right? There's so many reasons and so many things throughout this process that if you have somebody like Mike consulting on the startup project, he's going to know everything to keep going. I know my real estate stuff. Dustin knows his contracting stuff. Matt knows his banking. But Mike's going to take a holistic view of that, So I really think that getting your team on board, at least have a conversation with these people, so that we can start working together and moving this project down the path. And you want me communicating with the contractor early on. We want to know what's going on with that space from the very beginning. And so I want to connect you with those people on the earliest stages during that initial conversation that we're having. There's more. This conversation can take 20 minutes. It can take 2 hours. I mean, it's all depending on your questions and where the conversation goes, but that's where we start. So when we're starting and you're starting to think about where you want to be, like I said, some people know exactly where they want to be, and that's great. It's actually really easy for me too, but others want to look at more demographics. They want to understand the markets. They want to they have no idea. They're moving up here from Texas. Seattle is this massive thing they don't know anything about, right? And I highly encourage them to start on some demographics. Do you want to be next to Google, Amazon? Do we want to be in a younger population, older population? Do we want to be, where there's a lot of apartments down in South Lake Union, and you want to have that really trendy looking office, a lot of glass and stuff? Dustin can talk to that about that. Or do you want to be in more of a suburban neighborhood and have more families? Are you a pediatric dentist? You want to be with families probably, versus in South Lake Union. You want to be in the suburbs. We want to look at who the amount of renters to homeowners. And for a general dentist, my understanding is that you want to find about 2,000 people per area per general dentist. Mike, can you talk to me a little bit about that ratio that we look for a general dentist? Because I know it's different for specialists as well, but real quick, can you speak to that?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right, Steve. Those ratios are exactly in line with what I would like, at least 2,000.
At least, yeah.
I'm finding with the proper reports and help from you folks like you, you can find really good spots that are even better than that, right? Like
Totally.
the startups that I've been looking at lately have been as much as 5,000 to 6,000 per patient if you find those areas. But of course, there's the more saturated spots, that the more desirable, as I would call it, where you're going to get those numbers a lot lower. I think the lowest startup that I've ever helped was about 1,200. No, I take that back. 800 to 1. And it was a very rough start. Let's just put it that way. Specialists, I kind of like to look at how many GPs are in the area more than anything else, more than a patient to doctor ratio. So I want to have that discussion about how many GPs that they think they can serve in an appropriate radius. So I think a lot of people have different strategies there. If you see the poll, though, 7 specialists tonight, 17 GPs. So keep that in mind.
Matt, is there, from a bank standpoint, is there a ratio that you guys look at, or is that a factor when you're looking at an overall project for somebody?
It's not necessarily a factor in the underwriting decision or the amount that comes out of an approval. It goes back to having the team built around it and the advice and input you can give, and what Mike just talked about there for the doctors. Because at the end of the day, if the team is assembled and the right advice is given and taken and executed, then from a financing and cash flow standpoint, those metrics work out.
Yeah, good point. Okay. So I think demographics are really important. There's some companies out there that do really good stuff. Like if you have no idea where you want to go, you tell them your goals, and they will start targeting and pinpointing areas all across the Puget Sound and really help you narrow it down. And I highly encourage those guys to jump in on the projects if you have no idea where you want to go. But at the end, I mean, I think so. Demographics are important, but with that said, I've seen general dentists go downtown Bellevue, downtown Seattle. There's a lot of dentists in those areas, and they smash it. They absolutely do great. And so it's a factor that should be considered as a startup, but it's not the only thing. Like, it's these guys' mentality coming in there and knowing these people are there, and they have there's something different about them, right? They have they're going to go in there and do their thing, and they don't care who's there. And I like that mentality. I want you to be confident about where you're going, and don't rely solely on the demographics. If there's some other dentists there, let's look at who they are. Are they strong or they're not? But think about who you are, and think about what you're going to be doing in your marketing and your presence, and decide if you want to take that on or not.
Hey, Steve, I'll throw something out too. A pitfall that I've seen is paralysis by analysis with the demographics. It stops a lot of doctors dead in their tracks, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, do I do the 6,000 to 1 or the 3,000 to 1 or the 10% growth or the $120,000 a year, household income?" How do you get doctors to take that step? I know how. Yeah.
That's that thing. Who is this? Who are we? Are you ready to do a startup? And then you gotta know you want it. You gotta be motivated. Because I mean, you're right. I have people say, I want to know the demographics on the South Green Lake versus Roosevelt on the other side of the freeway. And physically, like 1 mile is exactly the same, right? Like, that's not, where do you want to be? Like, where do you want to be? We can look at that stuff all day, but it's a step that needs to take place. Understanding where you want to be is important. Understanding the market, being knowledgeable about the situation, but you got to be moving forward. Don't get stuck on that stuff too much. If there's one person in 1,000 dentists, okay, don't go there. I forgot to mention, if you're local and you have a non-compete, obviously we got to look at that. That's a big factor. I know they're a lot less important than they were, but still, you really don't want to piss off the person that you worked for the last, 5 years or whatever. So use a broker. I strongly encourage you to use a commercial real estate broker that specializes in dental. I think you should use me. Obviously, I have my contact information here. And just to speak to you guys really honestly, what I find, what I love about my job is I love to protect my clients, get them a good deal, help them meet their goals, protect them from the landlords that just want to get them in the space, protect them from the other brokers that don't know what they're talking about and really don't give a crap. They just want to sell you into the situation, protect you from other brokers that you might be working with that they have no idea what they're talking about. Do they realize that the floor might not be ADA compliant and then it's going to need to be built up and that's going to cost you an extra 30 grand? No, but I do. Use somebody that specializes in dental real estate when you're leasing a space. The best part, the easiest part for you guys is that the cost to you from me is nothing. I don't charge my clients anything. I get paid from the landlord side based on a percentage of the collected rents of the initial term of the lease. So everybody's like, oh, well, you obviously like don't want to get median free rent and get the rent up as much as you can. Like, no, those two little girls right there. I am working for them. I gotta feed those mouths. I want to get your referrals in the future. I want to do good work for you. It's important for me to get your referrals, do a good job. And so when you have your 1,000 dentist friends that want to lease a space or buy a building, you say, oh, talk to Steve. He got me a great deal. He protected me and highly recommend it. That's what I want from you guys. That's why I think you should work with me. My pledge to you is I will protect you from these guys.
Hey, Steve,
right.
A question
Yeah.
just popped up.
Yeah.
With small businesses being hit hard from COVID, especially in the service industry, are there any opportunities in the commercial real estate right now?
Yes. No. So,
Done.
for instance,
That's why you
I
want
got-
short, sweet, concise. He's not going to
Yeah.
waste time on it. It's a simple answer. Go.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm out of here. All right, let me give you an example. Last year, I had 2 clients, both in Ballard. One was actually a veterinarian and one is a dentist. They were looking for different types of buildings that they both needed. And at that time, there was very, very little options in Ballard. Since then, a lot more spaces have opened up that are perfect for places, for people, for dentists. So a bank left, the cycle, the spin cycle place left in a really nice building, and the landlord is motivated to get long-term tenants that are going to pay their rent no matter what the market's doing, or no matter what the circumstances are. So there's stuff like that all over. I haven't seen the prices go down or anything like that, but I've seen landlords motivated to get that long-term tenant a little bit more. Like I normally get brokers emailing me saying, hey, we got this project in Kent on this corner. We'd love to get a dentist. That used to happen like once a week, once every couple times a week. I'm getting that a lot now. And yeah, there's a lot of opportunities out there. But I haven't really seen the prices go down too much. I haven't seen the prices go down on buildings for sale at all. They're still selling for all-time highs. A building came on the market in Shoreline, perfect little 3,000 square foot building. It came on at a little more than 1.3. And it went pending within 3 days. And my understanding is that there was a bidding war. That's commercial real estate purchase. That doesn't happen across the board, but the market's hot right now. It's really hot, but there are some opportunities to answer your question. Let's say we've done the demographics. You're interested in Issaquah, and we're starting to get some spaces lined up. There's 5 spaces. One in, oh my gosh, one in the Highlands. No way. Never gonna happen. But imagine that. And there's one down on Gilman, and there's one maybe over in Sammamish. Working with a real estate broker that specializes in working with dentists, we're going to be targeting the aspects of that spaces that I know is important for you when we're walking out there and looking at them. You know, I'm looking at the parking, right? I'm talking to the broker about what type of tenant improvements are available. Where's the ADA parking? You know, what's going on? I can look at the electrical and stuff like that, but I'm taking pictures and understanding the space. I'm going to send those pictures to Dustin. I'm going to try to get Dustin to come by and take a peek at the space at his earliest opportunity. We're going to look at the aspects that I can communicate to that landlord that your build out is going to cost you more than $200 per square foot, maybe. And start plugging those seeds in the landlord's brain to get the most TIs from them. And talk about the specifics on the HVAC. You know, why do I need that? Why do I need that electrical panel? And being able to communicate the details on that, I've seen is able to get me better concessions later on the road. Having Dustin come in there and pointing out that there's not an HVAC system and then it's going to cost the doctor 20 grand has given me huge negotiation powers, you know. Once we're finding these spaces, I'm going to create a big list. I highly recommend you drive by a bunch, you know, drive by, see how you feel about it. Because inside the space, we're going to tear it all out. I want you to see how the parking is. I want you to figure out, you know, what's the visibility? How's the access? You can figure that out by just taking a peek and driving by, you know. And then we'll tour it. I'll tour it with you, like I mentioned earlier. Talk to the other brokers if they're there. Get Dustin to come in there. Get a designer to come in there and take a peek at it. Get more eyes on it. I strongly believe in getting as many people involved in the process early on to get other people's perspectives on the situation. Because there might be something I missed. There might be something that, you know, there's going to be valuable input from everybody throughout that process, and get them in. Once we narrow it down 1 to 3 spaces, we're going to make a letter of intent. Letter of intent is non-binding. There's no cost to it. It's essentially we're throwing out the parameters of the lease that we need for this space that meets your goals, and try to figure out how we can meet the landlord's goals. And in that, we're going to be asking for, you know, how much is the rent? We're going to ask for a period of rent to get the space built out, so that you're not paying rent on a space that you can't even operate out of. We're going to ask for a 10-year lease term with as many options to renew as possible. And what are options? At the end of 10 years, you have the option to lease that space for another 5 years if you want to. And I'm going to try to get 25 years, because even if you're not there for 25 years, when you go to sell that practice in year 12, my colleagues at Omni can tell you, if you don't have a lease term left, if you're on a month to month, your practice is worth a heck of a lot less. And it's going to be a real pain in the ass to sell. But if you have a bunch of options and you have that rate locked in and it's a good rate, they're going to have a lot easier time selling your practice and getting a lot more buyers at the table. Mike, it looks like you want to say something.
No, I was just actually reading the questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, Steve, on your.
Okay. I'm almost done.
You want to okay, let's get through your slides and then bang out some questions.
Yeah, we're going to ask the landlord for a bunch of stuff, but things that are important for you, dentist, is that we got to get as much money from that landlord as we possibly can. I want something like on a 2,000 square foot space, I want to get somewhere between $100,000 to $150,000 worth of TIs to help you get that space built out. And being able to show them the game plan, being able to show how many pieces go into this, using somebody like me, is going to help you get that. And the other thing, we're going to talk about the assignment clause, signage, parking. Who's paying for the HVAC if it blows up on you? We're going to negotiate for those on the front end. I'm looking out for the things that I know are important for a dentist in the very beginning. It doesn't cost you a cent, versus you having to have your attorney do it later on and it end up blowing up the deal because they don't want to do an assignment clause or they don't want to do an option to renew. We're squaring that away at the very beginning. And if they're not open to it, great, we'll move on. If they are, okay, we can keep moving forward. This process takes quite a while. While you're doing it, there's a whole bunch of back and forth. Get your financial package submitted to Matt, please, if you haven't already done so. Answer their questions, get a test fit done, get some bids from the contractor, get some bids from the equipment rep, start haggling with those guys, get your PLC or your LLC, I misspelled it, but LLC formed. The LOI process can take a painfully slow time, and use that time for your advantage. It's free time. Same with the lease. That can take a long time to negotiate. Use that time. When we get the lease, I'm going to review it, make sure it's in line with the LOI. I'm going to call out any crazy terms that I know are terrible. Like I recently had somebody in Kirkland ask for a net lease, which essentially it's a retail lease, and it wants you, the dentist, to pay them, the landlord, 6% of your gross profit each year. Like what? Stuff like that we're going to call out. And you're going to have a qualified commercial real estate attorney that specializes in dental review your lease. You do not want your buddy Dave from law school that you play cards with to do it. You're not going to do it. Keep working with your team. Just in the last 9 years, what I've seen that's been the most successful for startups is have your team together, have everybody communicating. And I don't mean just your contractor and your banker and your real estate and your designer and your consultant. Once you get your practice going, make sure you and your team are on the same page. Make sure you guys you're communicating your goals of your practice with everybody. Picking the right location. I don't care if there's a lot of dentists there, there's no dentists there. I want you to be happy and confident about that location and know that you're going to do well there. Make sure the lease is in line for you to be successful at the very beginning. So get your free rent, get your TIs, get the rent rate reasonable. Make sure at the end of your lease that it's a good lease too, so you can sell that practice with my colleagues at Omni and move on in life, move to Hawaii. And just make sure that your online presence, make sure your Google reviews are excellent, okay? Don't mess around with that stuff. Get somebody on your team to help build that stuff. Give me a call if you guys have any questions. If you guys are ready to take the next steps, give me a call. Thanks for your time.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Let's just crank some of these questions right now.
Okay.
Clear out real estate. There'll be some, thank you, by the way, excellent job. There'll be some time in the end for Q&A, guys and gals. But since a few of you have some questions out, let's just hit it. Let's just hit it now. There's one in the queue. If you can see it, what is the minimal ratio for an orthodontic practice? I kind of have a gut feeling, shoot from the hip answer there, but I don't work with a ton of orthos, to be 100% honest. What would you say? And let me throw this out. Ortho, pedo act very much like GPs these days. They go patient direct. They're not relying on referral sources as much as they used to back in the day. And so little different twists. As far as a ratio goes, what would you say, Steve, for ortho?
A heck of a lot more than the minimum for a general dentist, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least double what a GP would be.
I was thinking like 5 times as much. I don't know.
That's a great question, and I don't have.
Matt, can you speak to that?
Well, I was gonna. So let's talk about this, because we spent a lot of time on demographics, and it's absolutely important. But I don't want to think of demographics as a silver bullet to ensure success in your practice. It's one of the things to consider in a startup environment. having a practice that is built around a sound cash flow model is going to be the most important. You can overcome maybe some demographic challenges with a strong cash flow model. So what does that mean? The right size of space, the right amount on your loan, the right number of chairs in there to see your patients, with the ability to grow in the first 5 to 10 years. So you can solve for a lot of those demographic issues with the right model and with the right cash flow setup. So I think it starts to feel like a silver bullet because it's something that's controllable before you start your practice. And I don't want anybody to feel like hang your hat on demographics, that everything will take care of itself after the fact, because there's so much more that's going to go into the success of the practice, especially in those first 12, 18, 24, and 36 months when it's most critical.
Yeah.
It's a good point, Matt. But by and large, I would like to see more. Obviously, at least double.
The more is always the better, right? But you get to a point where maybe it goes too much, and then it's like, is this area underserved for a reason too? So it's always a balancing act.
Yeah.
I'll address the San
Good question.
Francisco Bay Area one, just because I do and have startups right now in the Bay Area. Just in general with the Bay Area, as I sit in the Bay Area right now, I've seen a lot of great numbers in the southeast, South Bay. I know you guys have your own terminology, but I think there's great opportunities if you look for them. But it's just like anywhere that I travel to do these startups, is the most popular spots are going to have a lot of competition, and you really have to think through what your vision's going to be, what your business plan is going to be to differentiate yourself. But by no means do I think San Francisco Bay Area is too saturated or a gold rush. It is pretty much par for the course, just like I see anywhere else in the country. So I don't know if that helped, but again, the first step is partnering with that right real estate broker and getting into some demographics and talking about how those numbers relate to that street view.
Yeah. And who is the competition? How are you different from them? Think about that. Are you the same as all of them, or is there something different about you? But when you're considering those things.
Let's
next question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just for time purposes, let's move on. Let's save that one to the end if you guys are good.
Oh yeah, the last one.
Yeah, we'll save a bank. Keep asking your real estate questions. We could probably talk all night about just real estate, but please get your questions in as we move on with the program. But for time's sake, let's move on. Steve, thanks again. Well done, sir, and thank you. Next up is Mr. Matt Muller, works for Bank of America. He's a vice president with the bank, specializes in project lending, and personal friend. And being an ex-banker as I am, this is personal. So Matt, the pressure's on to just drop it hot tonight, my friend. And I might just jump in and no, I won't. I absolutely won't.
You should absolutely.
Everything's changed. Everything's changed since I've been.
I can handle it. I am far from somebody who knows everything, for sure. So, and that's why we have the team, right? We all help each other out. So
great. You're up, Ross.
Thanks, Ben. First and foremost, thank you to all the participants out there, all the doctors who've joined us. We really appreciate your time. We know it's late in the evening and you have time to spend with family and friends and whatnot. So thank you very much for investing a couple hours with us. To the rest of the guys here, Mike, Steve, Dustin, thank you as well. We've got a fantastic team to help all the doctors on the call here get to where they want to go. And that can look like a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, helping you accomplish your goals, achieve your vision for your practice is what we're all most interested in. So To start, let me give you a little bit of background on myself. I'm somebody here who's local. I'm a Northwest native. I was born and raised in Eastern Washington in Yakima. I've lived here in Seattle for more than 25 years. I'm in the North Seattle area. Steve dropped some hints. I thought he was talking about my neighborhood a little bit ago when he was talking about it. So I'm here, I'm local to all of the local Puget Sound doctors on here. When we get back to a post-COVID reality, definitely look forward to the opportunity to meet everybody face to face and be a part of the team and part of the project. Real quick, Mike, next slide. I'll apologize in advance. Mike's controlling my slides for me today, so thank you, Mike. Extra kudos for you. A little background on Practice Solutions. So Practice Solutions has been in business for 25 years now. We are part of the small business division of Bank of America. We are 100% focused on private practice medical. So all we do is help doctors of all varieties with financing needs and requirements from their practice. Myself, I am dental exclusive. The dental side of the business is the majority of our business and where the business was founded. So I am 100% dental in my world. One of my main focuses is startups, and which is why I'm here talking to you guys today. So you know, the business with Practice Solutions was built on dental startups. The first loan that we offered when the business was founded 25 years ago was dental startups. So for all of you out there who are looking to start up, it is in our DNA to structure these loans in a way that are going to be most beneficial for you personally and professionally in the long-term success of your practice. The local presence that we have, me being here local, is one of the key differentiators as well. It allows us to work as a team with all the folks here and then the others that will be a part of your process as well. You'll hear the notion of team support throughout the evening. You've already heard it from Steve and Mike before. It is absolutely critical to have a team that works well together, that has transparent communication with you and with each other to make things go smooth and efficiently throughout. And building that team and connecting those dots as the CEO is one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give any doctor looking to start up. Thanks. Run through the agenda real quick. I'm going to touch on some details about the benefits of ownership, and I think we know a lot of those, but there's a couple of examples I want to call out. The first-time practice owner. What does that doctor look like? How are you well positioned to look like that first-time practice owner looking to borrow anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000 to start your practice? What does the process of starting the practice look like? What are the steps you need to go through? What does the team that you need to assemble look like? And how can we do that easily and efficiently? What does the credit world look like? What do you need to look like from a borrower, for an underwriter, and from a credit perspective to position yourself in the strongest way possible? Then we'll get into some details on the structure of the loan, what it should look like, and how having a partner from a financing perspective to partner with you long-term, beyond the initial approval, beyond the initial build, beyond the initial opening of your practice, but somebody who's going to be there with you 5, 10, 15, 20 years and beyond, and have the ability to be nimble and grow with the changes in your career. All right, let's talk about some of the benefits of practice ownership. So for those doctors that are associating out there, what are some of the high level, simple benefits of wanting to own a practice? First and foremost, structuring your day. I'm sure most folks got into dentistry for a variety of reasons. One of them being, can I be my own boss? Can I control what my day looks like versus having somebody control it for me? Building a legacy in your community. All of you are giving back in one way or another, whether it's clinical or beyond in your community, and owning your practice and owning your business gives you the power that you need to build that legacy and impact the community around you. Controlling your industry. There's a lot of reasons why DSOs and private equity are entering this business right now. It's a good business to be in, and owning your practice allows you to reap the benefits and impact your industry without passing it along to those companies who are looking to get in it. business equity. You're leaving a legacy for your family and the generations behind you. There's a lot of folks out there that grew up and their parents were dentists, and that's how you get onto it. There's a pass it down, pass it forward reality within this, and the ability to do that comes along with owning your practice. Finally, the rule of 50, and everybody's going to probably ask, what's the rule of 50? So let's get into that in the next slide. All right, real simple math here, and I'll walk through it with everybody while they're looking at it. And if you have any questions, you can enter it into the chat here. So let's take a hypothetical scenario. You're working, you're producing, and how much are you reaping the direct financial benefits as an associate or earning and producing for somebody else, okay? For this exercise, we'll take the assumption producing $50,000 a month, okay? $50,000 a month, $600,000 a year. The assumption that you're going to make 30% of collections leads to $180,000 of gross income. Taxed at 30%, net take home $126,000. Now, for a lot of us, that's a fantastic living, and I'm by certainly no means saying that it's not. But at producing at that level, what the potential you could bring home if you were an owner is significant. And I know this is something Mike talks to with all of his doctors, and however we tell the story and get here, this is real. So now you're an owner, you're producing $50,000 a month, still the $600,000 a year. But now you're getting the benefits of the assumption of 33% hygiene. So now your total gross revenue coming in is more like $900,000 a year, okay? So we've already made a big, huge jump there just based in ownership. Standard margins, assumptions for this conversation, let's call it 40% for your GP. Now we're talking about $360,000 a year, okay? So we've seen a dramatic increase in take-home money with the same amount of production done on a monthly basis. We're going to assume some basic numbers on the loan payment, which is going to be the biggest expense you have going out right now. Assume a 30% tax rate, almost $191,000 a year take home money with the same production. I'll let that sink in. $70,000 a year difference just by owning versus associating is dramatic. Next slide real quick, Mike.
I was late on that one. Sorry, Matt. I was right there with you.
I know you know this. I was thinking maybe I taught Mike something here and he's taking notes. That's why it took him a second to click over here. Don't steal this from me, Mike. You got to give me credit on it, okay? All right, so let's take the math that we just did, and let's assume 10 years, right? The lease that Steve is going to negotiate you is going to be a 5-year lease with a 5-year option. 10 years in, real simple math, we can all do 10 times the number. So $1.26 million versus $1.9 million. Again, simple math, easy. I don't need to explain this for you. Now you factor in the equity that you've built, the ability to sell the practice with the legacy you've built over the time of the 10-year loan, the difference that you're taking home as an owner versus an associate producing the same amount per month is almost $1.4 million. So with that, I asked the question for all of the associates out there that I know everybody's producing, $500,000 at least a month. Why wouldn't we be starting the path of going down and owning our practice?
And this might be my favorite slide of the entire night, because I know for a fact all 4 professionals speaking tonight are pro ownership, aren't we? We all want all of these clients to get into business for themselves, take control of their lives, their livelihood, and the benefits are clear. And even if you cut it in half, it doesn't matter. It's better. I mean, no matter which way you look at it, it's better. So thanks. This is great, Matt.
And the other side of that too, that I know all of us can agree on here too, is, the startup is the beginning of our journey together, right? we all want to work to help, get your loan approved, get your lease negotiated, get your office built, put in a business strategy and a marketing campaign to have all the fantastic success that we know you're going to have. But the real win for all of us, and I've got a slide later on it, so I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit, is the growth that you're going to have over the 20 to 25 years after it. We want to be part of the team in the beginning to start, because what's going to come down the line for all of us when you do things right is that you're going to outgrow your space. You're going to be calling Steve to want to find a bigger space or purchase a building. We had a purchase question here earlier, and now we're helping to grow as a team, right? And then it's a true sense of a team growing your business for your legacy together. Right? You're there. It's a little scary sometimes, Mike. All right, let's talk about what a typical first-time practice owner looks like, what we see and what we look for. When it comes to an approval, if you're going to position yourself to have the most success, what do you need to look like as an owner? So typically, the associate has worked 2 to 5 years. It doesn't mean that it could be a little less or a little longer, but that's normal. Specialists, less. We look at doing specialists right out of residency as well too. So you have that extra education, that extra skill sets. We look at that a little bit differently. Income earnings. You saw the previous slide. Normally, $120,000 to $150,000 a year is kind of the normal number that we look at. Student loans. This is a big one for everybody, and these numbers, I know are scary and burdensome, but student loan debt is good debt. The average that we see is between $300,000 and $400,000. And some of you on the line might be going, "Oh my goodness, I'm closer to $500,000." Totally fine. We do those all the time, but that's the norm. Balancing student loan debt versus personal debt, and for most of us on this call, it's going to be credit card debt. The difference between credit card debt, bad debt, student loan, good debt. It's okay to have student loan debt and work through this, but we want to minimize credit card debt as much as possible. And normally we see a balance carried over of less than $5,000 a month, which is where we want to be. Last thing is your personal liquidity. How much cash do you have saved up? A good rule of thumb is think of 10% of the loan amount. $500,000 loan, $50,000 in the bank, fantastic threshold. Now, all of these things work together, and I'm going to talk through a scenario that all of us have seen at one time or another that easily could be avoidable with some of these types of conversations. You're a doctor, you're working as an associate. Let's say you're well above the average, you're making $200,000 a year. And like all of us, we want to be out from under any type of debt we have. So what do? We start paying down our student loans aggressively, right? We live in a city like Seattle, or the individual from the Bay Area, which is a very expensive city to live in, right? So when you're paying down your student loans, you might be cash poor, right? Or you might not have the personal savings to live in a city like Seattle. So what do? You start living on credit cards. Now your credit card balance goes up. So you find yourself in a situation where maybe you've brought down the threshold of student loan debts, but your cash situation has been hindered. And because of that, your credit cards have gone up. And you might come to the table saying, "Hey, I'm going to be a great borrower. I have no student loans." Well, unfortunately, the way we look at it is student loan debt is good debt. It's an investment in you as a dentist. And we want to see how does somebody run the business of you? We're seeing how do you run the business of yourself before you have the opportunity to own and run your own business. And making those types of decisions and how you manage your debt, how you produce and work to earn, and then save are the 3 critical components. So if I could give any type of recommendations on this slide, work and earn, produce, save, and then balance the debt between your credit cards and your student loans. It's okay to have student loan debt. Do not sacrifice student loan debt for the sake of increased credit card debt. You will find yourself in a regrettable position. All right. Starting a practice. All right, you can skip through this one, Mike. There's a quick transition slide. Let's talk just kind of real quick about the positives and negatives, because I'm sure there's folks on here who've thought about buying a practice, thought, what's going to be the difference? If I purchase a practice, it's going to have instant cash flow. Why wouldn't I want to go that route? There's no right or wrong to either, right? There are pluses and minuses like anything in life, and it's more about what's going to fit your personality, what your individual goals are, and how each one can best suit you to get to the point of practice ownership as fast as possible, so we can get back to realizing those details on the rule of 50 slide. So we're not reinventing the wheel here on any of this, but it's worth talking about. The difference, the amount of time that's going to take to find your space, like Steve touched on, working through demographics, finding that right space. Inventory, well, there may be available, prices have not come down right now, so there can be some time investment in that. Not having a patient base, the immediate cash flow might not be there, but what you're doing now is you're customizing your practice. You're investing in new technology. You're investing in a new team. You're not inheriting what existed and lived in that office before and having to go in and clean things up. It's like peeling an onion, right? It may look great on the outside. You don't really know what's there until you start peeling it back. So you'll have some of that control there. And then lastly, the culture that you want to build. Whatever your focus is, however you want to give back to the community, you can start this from scratch and start to build what you want to be and what you want your business to be going forward for the next 20 years of your career. All right, here we are with team again. So you'll see here, including myself, 3 of the 4 spots on the team here is there, but there's so many more. Obviously, myself, the banker at the top, I'm going to help with the financial strategy, working to get your loan approved, so you have the money to do your project. Steve went through his details on the real estate broker, so I don't need to belabor that. You'll want to have an attorney working for you, somebody to help review the lease that Steve has negotiated for you, make sure from a legal perspective everything is in line there. You may want to have that person help you with any non-compete issues as well too. So that's a key member of the team. On the contractor, architect, designer side, those 3 things work together. And I'm sure Dustin will talk about some of the benefits of having a dental specific designer and architect on his team to help his process be more efficient. The equipment and technology specialist. There's a lot of great new emerging dental equipment and technology out there. And we're very fortunate in the Northwest here to have a lot of folks who are fantastic in their role in that. Having somebody that you can trust, having somebody that will understand what your vision is for your practice and sell you the equipment that you need to build your office is massively important. You don't want to be in a situation where you're having equipment put on you that is not necessarily what you need in the beginning of the life of your practice. And that goes back to the cash flow that I talked about at the beginning. You want to have enough operatories to have your patient flow go through to produce, but you also want to be able to manage the amount of expenses going out to have that strong cash flow. Real quick on a process for it, Steve touched on some of this too. Common sense stuff here, guys. I mean, at the beginning, create a plan, understand what your vision is, understand what your goal is, set a budget. What are you going to be comfortable with? What is realistic for you? And quite frankly, I've had a lot of conversations where sometimes that number is way high and other times it's way low. But having an expectation when you come to begin the conversations is critically important. So then when you're having those discussions with myself or with Mike and you're getting budgets from a contractor like Dustin or an equipment specialist, you know what those thresholds are, right? And oftentimes you can afford much more than you think going into it. And other times it might have to be ratcheted down a little bit, but we'll explain why, okay? And you'll understand what the details are. Next, find a space. So there could be a lot. That's all right. That's okay. The next slide's they're going to be much more interested in the next slide, Mike. So I'll burn through this real quick. Find a space in your location. Work with a lender to apply for your financing. Once you have those things done and you're kind of at the midway point, that's when the project really starts. Now you're designing. Now you're starting to build things out. Now you're ordering equipment. Now you're working on your marketing plan. I look at it almost in two halves, right? It's the pre-plan part, the pre-project part is a better way to put it. And that's creating your plan, setting a budget, getting financing, finding a location, and finalizing the lease, getting the keys, and then building out your office. And the entire process falls on either side of that fence. All right, next slide. All right, here's the budget. Everybody wants to know about the budget. How do we do it, right? So first and foremost, I'm going to use, again, round numbers are always better to talk about. So let's talk about this from a $500,000 loan perspective. This is with Bank of America. This is 100% financing. This is on an 11-year term. Interest rates are unbelievably aggressive right now. Like Steve said, we're at an all-time low for rates. Before I get into the breakdown here of the three silos of the budget, let's talk about why it's an 11-year loan. Okay, we want to give you the longest runway into success in your practice. We want to make sure that the payments are as small as possible in the beginning and ramp up with the growth of your practice. So year one is an interest only payment. Oftentimes on a loan like this, we're well under $2,000 a month. Year two, 50% principal plus interest. Year three, 75. It's year four before it's full principal and interest. These graduated payments are critical to the success and the positive cash flow in the beginning. And because we offer this type of a structure, and last time I checked, we're the only dental lender who has the full graduated structure like this out here. It is critical to the success, and it's why we have so much success with startups, even with what might feel and seem like maybe a tight budget in the Pacific Northwest. So $500,000 we start with there. Steve's contribution in this process in negotiating TIs is going to be critical, and it's not going to be uncommon for him to sometimes get close to $100,000 or more to the budget. So factor that into that, knowing this. We typically break it out $2,500 for construction, $175 for equipment, $75 for working capital. That being said, depending on the location, maybe you've moved into a place that was already a dental office, so the amount of construction might be a little bit lower. Can we look at increasing the silo of equipment? Absolutely. Maybe you chose a little bit of a bigger space because it's in the ideal location and you don't need as much for equipment, and we can move some of that over to the construction budget. Absolutely. This is where we start. These are the silos. And then again, going back to the transparency and communication with folks on your team, having everybody connected to what the goals are that you're trying to achieve and setting a budget based on what the approval amount is going to be is vital to the success. All right. Next slide. Any questions we need to touch on here, Mike? I've been going pretty fast through this. So I think we got some.
You're actually right on par. You've got a few more slides. We'll hit the questions right after you're done.
Okay, right on. People are always interested in this, and I think it's important to look at, what is our credit score? How is our credit score impacted? So there's three main bureaus out there, and they generally look at the same thing, and they break it up into this silo, these 5 silos here. I don't need to go through this here. You guys can see these details, but paying on time, keeping balances low, how long your credit history is, right? If you've never had any credit, you're not going to have a strong credit score, right? That's part of it as well. What the type of credit is. And then lastly, credit inquiries. I feel this way sometimes. People get very nervous about having your credit pulled, and is that going to negatively impact your credit? Well, it is something they look at, but as you can see on this breakdown, it's not the factor that's going to make or break your credit score, having somebody pull your credit to try to get you approved on it. And I think that's a key takeaway for folks, because people just don't look at it in this perspective. What should your loan look like? And I'll take it a step further. What should your partner from financing be able to offer you? Okay, first and foremost, face-to-face contact, right? This is a critical member of your team. And in another time, in another place, a little over a year ago, we would be doing this in person. This would be a face-to-face meeting. You know, we'd be going out for coffee and lunch and getting to know each other. It's a handshake business. We're part of your team. It's critical to have face-to-face contact. We're making the best with technology, thank goodness. But being here, having somebody that's local, that's in your community, that's in the dental world, working with your team, critical. That pivots into the industry expert part. Everybody will talk on it. You'll hear about it throughout. The pitfalls that come with having somebody outside of the dental industry, regardless of what seat they are in that circle that was a couple slides ago, may feel like it's going to save you money on the front end, but 9 out of 10 times does not. Having somebody who knows and understands how to build a dental office, how to negotiate with a landlord for a dentist, how to market and develop a plan and a strategy for growth is absolutely critical. Fixed rates and 100% financing. We talked about the liquidity issue. If you're talking to a lender, any lender that's requiring a down payment, having an adjustable rate for a startup, that's very likely not going to be the financial situation that's going to set you up for success. We want to make sure rates are fixed as low as possible. We have as much cash back in your pocket so you're able to grow and develop your business. Similar with the personal collateral, low fees. Our fees on these are very, very low. Optional rate lock fee of a couple $100, admin paperwork fee of a couple $100, and that's it. And no personal collateral. Okay, the collateral on these types of loans is the cash flow of the practice. Your practice and the cash flow is what we collateralize against, which is why I said, in the beginning, not just to make sure that from a business standpoint, the cash flow is strong, but that's why it's such a critical part of what we look at as a lender. And then finally, future growth. Somebody that's going to grow with you, grow with your business, and grow with the goals that you have set for yourself. So my next slide real quick. All right. Think of this, of the core that we got here of 20, we're gonna call it 25 years. I know it's 23 if you do the math, I can do the math. Over the course of 25 years of owning your practice, I wanna divide it up into a couple of different segments and what's gonna be important for each segment and how Bank of America is able to adjust with each of those segments to help you achieve your goals. Entering the market in year one. Having a startup loan structured in the very unique, very specific way to meet this market. Having all of the things that you need as a new first-time business owner. Business checking and savings accounts, business credit cards, merchant services, the ability to do remote deposits and digital banking tools, financial advisors. There's a whole list of tools that the bank has for a new first-time business owner that you're going to need all under one shop. Next, in the grow, let's call this the second 5 years of your practice in the original place. You're gonna find a place to lease that's roughly 1,800 to 2,000 square feet. You're gonna plumb out 5 operatories. You're gonna equip 3 to start, and depending on the plan and the execution, you're gonna be 2 years in and busting at the seams with 3 chairs, and you're gonna need to add equipment, right? You're gonna need to add hygienists and assistants because that's what your business is asking for, and it's what you need to grow the revenue of your practice. Having a bank that can grow with you and provide financing when you reach those second steps of your career, again, is a vitally important part of it. The second 10 years, and this is where, we've built the business, we've built the practice. Maybe you're thinking of moving to a larger location. Maybe there's an opportunity that a neighbor has moved out. You can knock down a wall and grow into that practice. Maybe you want to buy real estate and relocate. A lot of different requirements into streamlining your cash flow that are going to make that make that an easy and efficient process for you. And having a partner that you're having those conversations in year 6, 7, 8, 9, and what you need to do to best position yourself to achieve those goals is important as well. And then lastly, as you start to wind down your career, what is your next step going to be? What is your exit strategy? How do we work with folks to help transition your practice and get to where you want to be, which is, and enjoy the hard work that you've put in for 20 years.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, sir.
We are close to the finish, and I see that you are also. Let's hit this question because I think it's Katerina. Is that right? She is asking something that relates to this slide exactly. So if you can read along here, what equity, I have an answer for this, but I'd love for you to take a crack at it. What equity does the dentist build over the years of owning a practice when equipment and space improvements depreciate? Most dentists lease, so there's no equity in leasing. And, obviously the answer is, well, she's saying patient growth could be one, but the practice might not grow. So that's, how would you answer that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a fair question. The equity in your practice is the growth of your practice. It's why you have the efficient cash flow in the beginning. It's why the steps in the beginning are so important, because you're exactly right. There's going to be minimal value in the equipment there, and if you're leasing, you're right. You're not building equity in the real estate, right? But the practice does grow and build equity through patient attrition, the right way, patient acquisition, not attrition. And then how the cash flow continues to grow.
And that's perfect, because that kind of leads right into what I was going to say is then probably the number one pitfall that I see at the end of this continuum at the retirement mark, is folks haven't done the right things with their cash flow from the time they start the practice all the way to the end. So they're really banking on their practice as their main thing to sell and retire on. And that's one thing that I would say is a huge pitfall for folks is to not manage their cash flow and put money into retirement over the years. The sell is, and I do a lot of acquisitions, the sell can be quite nice as well. And just to give you an answer, practices are selling depending on where you're at in the country, but probably 80 to 90% of what you're collecting. So that can be a nice chunk of money that you get to throw into your retirement. And so, but I love this slide because B of A has so many solutions from start to finish.
And that you're exactly right there too. And that's why that transition silo, the force silo there, is so important. If you know in your market what you're likely going to be able to sell your practice for when you transition out, then you'll know where you need to be based on what your personal financial goals are. And you can make those preparations as you get towards the end of the mature silo into the transition silo. And you're having those conversations on the front end. And Mike, you experience this as much as anybody on this call. Those conversations and how to prepare don't happen soon enough and don't happen often enough. And then you're in a situation where you're trying to maximize the sale of an asset that they might not be able to get what they want. And they're in a tough situation because that has been their entire, retirement, right? Or whatever you may want to call it.
I love these questions, Matt. They're coming in a little bit more, and we're out of time on your spot. But can you make some final thoughts, and then we'll hit some of these other questions?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we're talking about startups here. So I'll keep it focused on startups. There are challenges in the beginning. It takes a lot of hard work to do it, right? And anybody who's going to tell you it doesn't take a lot of hard work and it's a foolproof process if you do this, run away, right? There is work. It's going to be hard, but it is so massively doable if you follow a couple of steps, you put the right team together. The opportunities now are significant. The re-entering of the startup market for all of us is the biggest positive indicator economically for the dental industry that I can imagine. And so with that, to me, the future is bright. The opportunities are there, and waiting it's not the time to do that, right? It's if you're interested in owning a practice and starting up is something you're considering, I would say having a conversation and understanding the realities and where you're at, and if you're not quite there yet, what you need to do to get there, it is of critical importance.
Matt, good question popped in here, and I think you're going to have the banker answer with your statistics. I have one as well, and it relates right into banking here. So how long does it take on average to break even while you're paying yourself a salary? So I know you've got your cash flow, and then I can tell you my experience.
Yeah. The answer that nobody's going to want to hear, but you have to start any answer with this, is it depends, and it's different for everybody, right? I've seen people get to that mark in year one, sometimes 6 or 8 months. I've seen others, get to year 2 and beyond to get there, and that's certainly not where we want to see it. I want to start to see the break-even point come for a doctor and know things are going the right trajectory. Is healthy, let's call it the 12 to 18 month mark right there, and ramping up to real profitability, in the second half of year 2.
Yeah, so I would say that I think that's the right answer, and that's the answer that I believe as well. Is that it's probably a conservative answer, and I think that's okay because the banks have to be conservative in their projections. So I think that's the right answer for sure. And worst case scenario, I can tell you that, and we're going to get to this. It's a little teaser for my presentation towards the end, but how to get a quick start right out of the gate so you can hit the ground running. I can tell you that on average, I've seen my clients break even, and I say break even as in they haven't paid themselves anything yet. So break even is my definition of I haven't paid any salary to myself, and I'm seeing that month 3, somewhere between 3 to 6. If you're doing kind of all the right things that we're going to talk about towards the end. The last 2 startups with COVID, they broke even in the second month. So I can't say that that's going to be everybody. And Matt, you're exactly right. We talked about competition. We talked about lots of things already tonight. There's so many factors. So how do we answer that question as panelists? But what I can tell you is if the environment is right, and you're doing the right marketing, which we're going to get to later on the presentation, you can really do some damage in your first year for sure.
Yeah, and the key, it's a great advertisement for you, Mike, and you know what you're doing, and this is why you have so much value for these doctors. It's more about it's having the plan and the strategy. And I sound like a broken record, so I apologize, but ensuring that you're doing the right proactive marketing efforts and having your ducks in a row so that your cash flow is going to be tidy in the beginning. The practice that goes out and if 3,000 square feet in Seattle market and 6 chairs and you start getting in an over leveraged position there on it. So if you want to get it early and you want to build it so it's sustainable and something you can build upon, understand that while we all want to move as quickly as we possibly can, and everybody here will help you do that, this is a marathon, not a sprint. We're going to help you do it as fast as you can, and trust that we all have that interest in here. But it's a step, it's a process. We've seen the lease versus buy question come up, and I would have a similar answer to that for the startup doctor, right? I understand wanting to purchase and buy real estate, and sometimes it makes sense, but the sprint, the marathon versus the sprint conversation is applicable in that standpoint too. Cash on hand, for giving up a TI contribution from a landlord that Steve is going to negotiate. There's a lot of reasons why owning a building is inherently difficult in in an urban environment like Seattle for a startup. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but having a plan in place to get there and to get there in the timeline that you want is more important than trying to do it out of the gate.
Final comments, Matt. I don't want to cut you off. You want me to?
I'm sure there will be more questions here, so I'd say let's get there. There I am. Yeah. As everybody will say, we are available at any time. I know everybody has very busy schedules, so if it's lunchtime, if it's after work, if it's in the morning, if it's on Saturdays and Sundays, we are here to help you. So any questions that you didn't want to ask or that you think of overnight or over the weekend after you remember this, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us.
Beautiful. Dustin, I'm gonna let you kind of take control of this bad boy, but we are right on pace. Dustin and I will get right to it. We're hoping to have a Q&A at the end. I'm losing light. I'm sorry, I look like an orange. I don't know what you'd say, an orange popsicle, I guess, but it's just what I'm working with here in the hotel. But yeah, so as we work through this process, right, real estate and banking, you can interchange those from the first or the second step. It doesn't matter which way you go. I know Steve would much rather start touring if they knew Matt had talked to that client and had an approval in place. A lot of people always ask all of us, right, what's the first step? Well, banking and real estate are kind of the same first step. And so that's what you just heard. And now the journey really begins. The execution of the project and becoming of the space that you had envisioned. That's really Dustin Long's expertise. I'll introduce you, Dustin. Dustin is the man, the myth, and the legend up in the Pacific Northwest. He owns Big Sky Construction. He's really taken that market by storm and is the top dog, top dental contractor up here in Seattle. I know we all respect him as panelists here. We value his opinion, and I think I'll leave you with this because I'm not touching on budget tonight. Construction will literally be 75 or more % of the budget. So if you do not ask Dustin questions tonight, you may have made a $20,000 mistake and you don't even know it. And I mean that. And I mean that in all seriousness.
And coming from the money side of this, Mike's exactly right. And to go full circle on this, it's exactly why you need somebody like Steve negotiating your lease for you. And when I had those silos up, I mean, we're seriously talking about $100,000, give or take, and sometimes more, going straight to the budget to help get the project done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Budget is definitely a fine line to this entire process, and Dustin can control. He has a big hand in controlling that number, and so having partners like Dustin on your team is invaluable. So, Dustin, without further ado, my friend, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you all for being here this evening. And yes, construction is the largest part of the entire budget bucket. And so that's why partnering with someone like Big Sky Northwest, as well as all the panelists here, we understand the challenges that you are going to encounter, but we have solutions to those challenges. We provide our knowledge and our direction to make this as easy, smooth, and enjoyable for you, because a lot of you probably won't do this many times in your career. Knock on wood, everyone has multiple practices. 5-10 years from now, great. But our average client is only going to have 1, maybe 2 offices. And so it's super important for us to make this process a smooth, enjoyable, and a very energetic process. So let's move into it. This is the phases of construction that I go through from start to finish. We're going to start here with, let's see here. Oh, my slide. Oh, here we go. Pre-construction. So in the pre-construction phase, and at the very end of this, I'll have a schedule that shows the timeline and the durations of how long these different steps can take. But early on, just like Steve mentioned, I'm going to do a space evaluation. And some clients, I may go look at 5 different spaces. Some clients know the exact space they want, and so it's only the first one. So don't limit yourself to calling me on just one space. The space evaluation is free, and it's a great opportunity for you to understand the space that you're potentially going to take over and what kind of challenges are going to come with that space. Because we can build the dental office in a box. We can build the dental office inside of anything. It's understanding the shell space that you are going to walk into. That's why it's so critical to have this space evaluation. As part of that space evaluation, coming out of that, we're going to provide you with a conceptual budget. So the good thing with Big Sky, we have over 100 different dental offices that we've built over the last 6 years. And so our historical data on dental is spot on. So we're able to give you conceptual budgets based on the square footage, based on the practice that you have you've defined to us, so that you can then take that to the bank, and that starts the process of understanding where the construction budgets are going to fall. We then get into the practice design in the pre-construction phase. And then finally, we get into the final construction budget, and that's right before actual construction starts. A couple fun photos here. So this is a project that is somewhat starting, and then a project that has fully developed. So we're going to move right into the space evaluation. During the space evaluation, we're walking the site. And again, the most critical component of that is identifying inadequate infrastructure. It's very important for us and for you guys to understand electrical capacities. Size water lines coming into your suite. Your typical office may have non-dental, a couple sinks, maybe a toilet. A dental office could have upwards of 15 to 20 fixtures. And so the size water line coming into the space is very critical. We're also looking at HVAC. What kind of backbone has the landlord provided to us, and what kind of systems are we tying off on? And is there adequate or sufficient capacity in order to make sure that you're going to have comfort control for your patients, your staff, and yourself? We're also looking at site logistics. Are you on the 20th floor of the medical dental building, or are you at a street level retail space? The means of constructability is also a big factor into the budget. How easy is it going to be for us to build this space? And then we're also helping with Steve. We're reviewing and advising on lease language in terms of landlord and tenant work. We're wanting to make sure that when that landlord's trying to push for them to build the bathroom, we don't want landlords building your bathroom. They're going to do it as cost effective and cheap as possible. And in turn, they're going to give you something that we're not going to be able to use. Dental restrooms, that's just one example. And I've seen it in the past, and we had to tear it down and rebuild it, because traditionally a restroom for patients in a dental office, it's a very comfortable space. It's a very design, aesthetic, pleasing space. So that's just one example. Here's a prime example. So during a space evaluation, I'm on site. This is a great example of a shell space where we're looking at how tall are the windows, which is going to help define to the designer how tall we can get our ceilings. We're also looking at, we're looking at the water lines coming in. This particular one had a 1-inch water line. That is sufficient for this particular practice that we're going to build. Does the space have venting for waste and drainage? We're looking at window opportunities of putting vents and louvers, because in a dental office, we have a lot of air that we need to get out, and we also have a lot of air that we need to get in. You've got direct connections for your vacuum that need to exhaust out into the open. You've got fresh air intakes for your compressors. You've got, if you're planning on having a nitrous closet, that is, again, another window that we have to absorb for fresh air coming in and exhaust going out. We're also looking at structural components. This is going to help identify to the designer any items within the space that either we need to design around, or maybe they can be modified. Obviously, in this particular instance, we've got a large structural concrete column. We're definitely not modifying that. So we have to design around the structural elements within the space. We're also looking at, I don't know if you can tell here, but the walls of this shell, they're unfinished. It's just drywall screwed up to studs. This is going to help with the negotiations, maximizing the leverage. Hey, landlord, thank you for providing this, but it's not finished. We need some additional dollars in the TIs in order to finish these walls. And this particular space had 0 HVAC. So what we did is we then, took a step back. Let's engineer this space. How much is it going to be to provide the equipment for this space? And how much can we leverage on that cost to increase your TIs? Because technically that is an infrastructure component that you're adding to the building. So you're adding an asset to the landlord's shell that they should theoretically partake in paying for. So again, great example. This identifies what I'm looking for during the space evaluation. We then step back, we put budgets to all the items that are inadequate. That way Steve can go back to the landlord and say, thank you, it's a great space, but we have these challenges and we need your help remedying the fiscal upgrades. Next, we've got the conceptual budget. So this is a construction breakdown of all the different line items inside of the budget. So we're going to have cabinetry, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Now, again, these costs are going to be historical because right now I have no idea what your practice looks like, how many ops you want. I'm going based on a square footage. Are you a GP or specialist? And what you feel like you want inside this practice. So it's basically a number based on a napkin sketch. That then goes to the bank so that we can start the discussions of what this is going to cost, or how much of the portion of the budget that the bank's giving you that this is going to consume. Here's a nice little pie chart. So again, this is the categories broken out for the cost of construction. As you can see, cabinetry, that is such a critical component in a dental office. It's the first thing you see when you walk in, and it's also the most functionally utilized spaces for storage and handpieces and equipment. So cabinetry tends to be one of the largest buckets in a construction budget. We also have electrical. We've got 18% for finishes. So this is your flooring, your painting, your ceilings, the tiles you want on the wall. Maybe you want some wood features. So 18% for finishes. We've got the general contractor is roughly 15%. So that's Big Sky partaking in the process of managing it. We're superintending it. We've got direct supervision on site every day, which is your go-to eyes and ears. Plus you've got me as a project manager working through this entire process until you see your first patient. Then we have plumbing, HVAC, site work, and fire. So a fun little visual, and those can vary project depending, but this gives you a good average of what the costs are. Then we go into practice design. Now, a lot of people, you'll hear the terminology of test fit or blocking diagram. This is when we have a space and you've identified, look, I want to try to fit 5 or 6 ops. I want 1 or 2 restrooms. I do need a lab. So the designer is putting together basically a test fit of what can fit inside of this space, just to give you some ideas of what it could look like. Now, there's a second option to that, and that's the equipment representatives. They also do test fits. Traditionally, the equipment reps, and I encourage my clients to utilize both, because the equipment representatives, they'll do this process for free, which is great. The designers, they'll traditionally charge you a nominal fee, but seeing the 2 different perspectives. So the equipment representative, he's going to be designing this test fit around equipment. How much equipment can I put into your practice, and how does that look like, and how does it flow? A designer is going to be driven more by staff and patient flow. And so when you see the 2 different test fits, they're going to vary, but it gives you the opportunity to put a pros and cons list to each test fit. And then we marry the 2, and that now becomes the floor plan foundation that all of the rest of the design stems from. So once we get past that test fit, you say, yes, I love this layout. This is exactly how I want to get to all the operatories. This is where I want all the spaces. We start right into the construction documents for permit. That is one of the most critical time milestones in our process because cities take so long to review and approve for permit. And honestly, COVID did not help any of the cities or shorten their time frames. We have cities taking anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks to review your documents and approve to proceed with a permitting or a construction, excuse me. But the good thing is, while the city is reviewing for a permit, we're in the background and we're now drawing the construction documents for building. So the city doesn't care what color it looks like, what materials you're using. They're more fire and life safety. So while they're taking their 8 to 12 weeks to review and approve your permit, we're in the background doing the construction documents for building. This is the a very fun exercise where you start putting your hands and eyes on materials. You're looking at the different tiles. You're looking at different paint colors. You're looking at the different flooring options. We're showing you different light fixtures, plumbing fixtures. This is when all of the fit and finishes now come together. What do our cabinet elevations look like? I want a door here. I want a drawer there. The construction documents for building are what we then take to actually build your practice. Here's a couple examples of what we call test fits. So you can see on the right, this was what they consider more of a blocking diagram, where they blocked out different rooms. And then on the left is a more traditional test fit from a designer, where it shows it's a little more closer to a floor plan than a blocking diagram. But basically, this is your first initial sketch of what your practice could look like. So once we've got through the test fit, we've got through the construction documents for permit, we've now finalized the construction documents for building. It's now time for me to put together the final construction budget. So this is the actual number that I'm telling you it's going to cost to build your practice. Now this one gets extremely detailed. We have line item by line item so that you can analyze and you can see where every dollar of your investment is going. Now, when we've hit this stage, a lot of times you'll see there's a terminology called value engineering. Sometimes the budget might be a little bit higher than what you are comfortable in spending, which is perfectly fine. It's become a common practice where we go in and we figure out ways to carve dollars out of the budget. Now, the value engineering, this isn't stripping your dreams out of the practice. This is a very almost like a science-based process, because our goal is to ensure that the aesthetics of the practice, the function of the practice, are not tampered with whatsoever. Our goal is to make sure that when you walk in that front door, if there is some value engineering, there's no way you can find it or tell it. So here's yes.
Sorry, I just jumped in like that. Value engineering. Oh, there it is. Help the folks in the audience understand what value engineering is. A very common word in our world, but
yes, it is. I've actually got some really good pictures to show you. So here's a slide. Well, my first slide, this is what a construction budget is going to look like. So you have, I don't know how many line items there, but when you get a bid from a general contractor, it should have this level of detail to it, because it's good for you to understand where all the dollars of your investment are going. So this is what a final construction bid looks like when you get it from Big Sky. Let's get back to that value engineering. So I've got 3 examples here. All these restrooms, honestly, I'd love to use, but this is a prime example where the restroom on the left would certainly say is more high end. The restroom in the middle and the right, those are what we would call a more valued engineered restroom. The one in the middle is going to have the more, I would say, a higher valued engineered restroom, but it's still, we have tile on the walls. It's very clean. It's sharp. It just might have a few of those key elements like the one on the left, the LED mirror. Maybe we buy that later. The wood slat ceiling feature. You know, a lot of times what we do on value engineering is we incorporate the means of constructing it today so that we can add those features later on. We have several docs come back 6-8 months later and say, you know, Dustin, that beautiful architectural wood wall that we had to take out in the beginning because of budget, come put that back in. So we try to identify elements that can be added back into the practice once you are in a cash flow situation where you can spend it. Here's another example. So a waiting room on the left, that's pretty intense. I would consider that a more high-end waiting room with a reception desk. The picture in the middle and the top right, I would consider those more median price budget waiting rooms. So when we talk about value engineering, again, it's not to say that we're going to be deleting and slashing things out of your practice. We're just finding a more economical way of constructing your practice within a budget that you can afford. For example, so the one in the middle, you can see that we came up with a wall covering. Originally, she wanted a marble there, but the marble wasn't in the budget. So we put wall covering there. Still turned out fantastic. So again, value engineering it is a common practice, but it's got to be done in the right manner so that aesthetically you can't tell something was deleted or omitted after it's been constructed. Let's see here. Let's go to, now we're into the construction phase. So this is when the fun really starts to take shape. I love these three pictures that I'm about to show you. So each one of them is taken from the same position of the same project. Right now you see a picture very raw, very rough framing. We've got the electrical, we've got the blocking. The next picture, we've started to put drywall on. It's starting to really take shape. You can see the clouds forming with the drywall on them. Well, here's the next picture. Now you see it finished. It's got the paint, it's got the floor. Perfect example. I love what I do, honestly. I mean, I'm so happy that Steve, Matt, Mike, they're great at what they do, but honestly, I love what I do because I'm constructing something so beautiful. This was a really fun project, and every project we build is a lot of fun to construct. Let's go to the next page. So one of the first processes once we've hit that construction milestone is the material procurement and submittals. This is when we have, we're starting to review and approve and procure long lead items, because a lot of times these materials aren't readily available at Home Depot. It's quite common where the majority of our materials, they could take 6 to 8 weeks to get. And so we have to act quickly on the front end to make sure that we identify those materials. We're getting them reviewed and approved with you, and then we start purchasing those so that they're here in time during the course of construction when we need them. The second one is engineering shop drawings for cabinets and architectural features. That's another critical component. Just because it's on the plan doesn't mean we can build it based on that plan, especially when it comes to cabinetry. Here's a prime example. So we had a very unique reception desk. It was a marble facade, marble top. This was a startup, by the way, with very ornate cutouts in the marble. So here's one look of the desk. We have another look where we get a little bit more into the detail, the radius of the cuts, cut sections. What is the in-between materials between the stone look like? So we're talking all these details, drawing all of this, all these components into drawing the components so that we can put it together in the end. Here's one more look of the shop drawing, and this is how the desk turned out. Absolutely stunning. Very beautiful desk. And again, I want to reiterate, this was a startup. It was a B of A startup, hit the budget. There was some value engineering involved in this project, but it turned out just absolutely beautiful. So once we have built your practice on paper, we've started ordering all the materials that are going to take a long time to get here. We're now on site and we're laying out your project. So we're snapping the lines. Very exciting time, because you see docs right now, it's just an open shell. We're snapping the lines, spotting all of the MEP infrastructure. They're walking through and they can actually now start visualizing and walking through their rooms. Here's a great example. So right here, this is a shell space. And as you can see on the ground, we've snapped out the lines. And so you're starting to really see the project come alive. You're walking through the rooms, you're identifying all the different spaces. It's a really fun exercise. Now, here's a really good reason why you want a dental specific contractor. So when it comes to a 12 o'clock, very small, very tight restraints when it comes to where we can put all of the infrastructure that's required to run all of your systems. So in a 12-inch by 12-inch space, we've got a sanitary drain, we've got your vacuum, cold water, hot water, compressed air, low voltage network raceways, electrical. Missing the mark on this means your operatory is not going to function or lay out the way it should. You're either reaching for your hand pieces or you don't have enough room between the head of the chair and the countertop of the 12 o'clock. So it's extremely critical during the rough in stages to make sure that those infrastructure systems are spot on. Then we have the next major milestone of the project, which is called the rough in milestone, or what we like to call the box walk. This is when we've got all of the core drillings complete, all of your infrastructure systems are installed, all of the framing is installed. We like to have a box walk party. We bring the designer out, the clients there, the technology specialist, the equipment specialist. Everyone involved in this project to this point comes out to the project to tour it, to see all of the infrastructure in place before we start closing up the walls. This allows the doc to sit in every single room and envision, okay, here's my desk, or here's my 12 o'clock. You know what? I want to wall mount my monitor above the 12 o'clock instead of having it sitting on the countertop. That way I can, get rid of some of the clutter, or sterilization. Future's telling me I need 2 M11s and we're going to stack them. And so we have to have spot on allocations for all of our blocking, all of our electrical, all of our plumbing. And this is within 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. So we go through every room, every wall, every component inside the wall to make sure that it is spot on before we start closing up the walls. Because once you close up the walls, it starts getting a little bit a little too intense to start changing, moving, or adding. Not to say it's not done, but it's always caught at the box walk. Here's a prime example of a box walk walkthrough where you've got open framing. You can see the light fixtures. You can see the fire alarm. You can see the HVAC. Now, one thing Big Sky is great about doing, we laser everything, because there's nothing worse in a dental office to not line up. So everything is lasered in. All of our corners, all of our metal framing, every fixture in the wall is lasered to make sure that we have symmetry and clean lines. You can see here in this operatory how the can lights, the fire protection head, the fire alarm, another can light, everything is in symmetry, so that when it's closed up and you walk into that operatory, it all just matches perfectly. And then this one also had a dental light, which was over the patient's right hip. That's why it is a little offset from the can lights. Here's another great example, walking into a box walk. This is such an awesome opportunity for our clients to see what their practice looks like before the walls go up. It is so awesome to see how much infrastructure goes inside of these walls in order to run your dental office. The box walk meeting is such a fun opportunity. Here's a fun fact for you. So we've got a finished operatory here, and your average operatory contains over 500 feet of electrical wire, over 75 feet of network cabling, over 30 lineal feet of 2x6 lumber, and over 90 feet of plumbing piping. So as you can see here, the bottom of the 12 o'clock, we've got electrical, data, compressed air, vacuum, and this particular one also had nitrous and oxygen. Coming from the top, we have more electrical and data for CPU and monitors hanging off the 12. We also had a ribbon in this particular project, so we had blocking above the TV. We've got more electrical and data. We've got another TV at the toe wall, so more electrical and data. And then, of course, the utilities run into the chair. We've got electrical, data, compressed air, vacuum. And then we've got our sink, sanitary, hot and cold water, x-rays behind it, more blocking and electrical. So you can just envision that super critical in building a dental office to make sure that your team knows how to execute this, because there's so much involved. So I figured that was a nice fun fact to throw out there. Then we get into the finishing milestone. So this is when the practice starts coming together. This is when we're starting to lay our flooring. We're starting to put paint on the walls. We're installing light fixtures. We're installing plumbing fixtures. The excitement at this point is just exploding, because you can see it come together. The lights at the end of the tunnel. You're ready to see your first patient. Let's see here, finishing milestones. So, all right, this is another great example where we're showing a very rough stage of a practice, starting to put some drywall on the walls, and then coming back and seeing the finished picture or finished stage of that practice, where, I mean, it's just I love building. And then we get to the completion part. We're final cleaning it. We're moving in your equipment, all of our final inspections. You're storing and stocking supplies and getting ready for your first patient. Now, here is the schedule that someone was asking for earlier. So on average, you can assume it's going to take, I mean, if everyone's just clicking and going quickly, 8 months. On average, though, you're looking at about 9, potentially 10 months. You've got a couple weeks in there for space finding. You've got your bank applications, which need to happen early on. You've got lease negotiations, the site evaluation, the conceptual budgeting for construction, equipment, technology. We're then doing your test fit with the designer and the equipment rep. We're then putting together your permit drawings. Then we're submitting to the city and giving them ample time to review and approve. But during that, again, we're preparing your construction documents. Then we get into the final construction budget, which takes a couple weeks. We're giving time for the equipment and technology to put together their final budgets. Then we start the practice build out. On average, practice builds take about 12 weeks. Then we've got the practice credentialing. We've got launching your marketing campaign, staffing your practice, and then doors open for patients. So this is a great roadmap for a timeline, and it's also a good checks and balance. Print this out, use it as a tool, and make sure that you're not missing any of these steps. And again, Mike, Matt, Steve, we've all got this drilled in our head. We're here for you at any time. We can send you this information, or we can go over it again, definitely. But these are all key factors in making sure that you set yourself up for a successful practice. And Mike, I will stop sharing my screen.
Well done, sir. Actually, take that last slide back up real quick. I want to highlight real quick the amount of overlap. Can you take it back, Dustin?
Yep. Share screen.
And it's a perfect segue into my presentation, but I just want to highlight real quick the amount of overlap that all these kind of steps, where all these steps kind of happen, right? You'll notice that a lot of things are moving while Steve is negotiating the lease. You'll notice that a lot of the practice management stuff that I'm going to talk to are happening is almost as early as the permits go in. I mean, and all of it, right? The technology person gets plugged in. It all works. It all happens within a time frame, and you'll notice that the thanks, Dustin, for that.
Oh yeah, sure.
you'll notice everyone that everybody continued to talk tonight about getting a team in place that that works well together, that understands the whole process, because it's essential that we're all talking together. We all know what's going on. We know what the timelines are. And if you work with an experienced team, an experienced professionals, it just comes so automatic, right? For all of us. But I sometimes when I'm coaching clients, they're like, they really want all the steps written out, which is great, and that visual, Dustin, is perfect for them. But if you're working with the team, we really do keep you on the right path, going down every step of the way. So, Dustin, I'm just going to keep flowing here, just for the sake of time. We do have questions. I'm not going to ignore them, but I'm going to blast through this part, and then hopefully we have a few minutes at the end to ask questions. Again, Mike Dinsio, founder of Next Level Consultants. I got into consulting because I got a little burnt out on banking. I always say I'm a recovering banker. There's the bullet point, Matt. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. Truly, I am recovering. Many deals, startup deals, many acquisitions. But what I am truly passionate about is getting doctors into ownership. That's what I am so passionate about. And we all are, which is why I appreciated Matt's slide about showing the comparisons between associate versus owning. Currently, we are consulting, give or take, plus or minus 30 dentists at a time. A lot of them are startups, some of them are acquisitions, and we do a lot of practice management post-close as well. On the practice management side, I have a team of advisors, experts just like myself, where you get multiple coaches. My vision when setting up Next Level was to have a team in place that lived the world of dentistry in each department. And I break those 3 departments down as clinical, front office, and then of course, business and financials. I represent the business strategy marketing person of our crew. I also have a clinical coach. Her name is Paula Quinn. She's been in dentistry forever, owns her own practice as a hygienist, understands the clinical part. And then we have many front office coaches as well that really can help and dial in on front office. I've got a master's in business, minor in marketing. I say that just because it has been my life's pursuit to understand business and help folks get into business and understand it. My agenda tonight is short and sweet. It's the 3 game changers in marketing that I would like to talk about. It's the patient experience when you bring those patients into the practice. And then I want to touch lightly on hiring people, because if you notice, we went through that quick journey of Steve and Matt getting the money in the space. Dustin did a really good job of really walking us through design and construction and equipment and technology, which is computers and wiring. And so now that the project is complete or well on its way, literally with all of my clients, that we have to shift to the business side, because up to this point, it has all been about planning, budgeting, finding the space, preparation. And at some point, you got to stop thinking about all of the nitty gritty of the project and think, oh my God, I'm going to be open for business in less than 45 days. I need a team. I need to get people to come in. Now that I've spent $500,000, I need to get people in the chairs. And so that's really my part tonight. And it's really difficult to do that in 30 minutes, but we're going to give it a go. So let's get right into it. Game changer 1. Okay. There are many things I could talk about tonight with marketing, but I will tell you that the folks that do some of these things early on will have a quicker, faster start. Okay, so the first part is really this game changer 1 is get exposure as soon as possible. You saw some of those pictures that Dustin had with the framing and how it's all kind of coming to life. What a cool story you could share with the community that you're about to serve that you're a dentist about to go into a space and you would love to invite them in and show them what you're all about. I like to put big banners on the windows, stake them in the ground while the project is coming with a big QR code with a landing that directs you to a landing page that is very simple that says, coming soon, join our newsletter, click on our social media. And that's it. Maybe even book an appointment, but very simple, clean, simple landing page. And literally do that as early as possible, maybe even 3 months before you open. Because what you want, as I'm sitting here in this hotel, this is a very busy road that we're right beside. I'm thinking, you see it when hotels are built, or you see it when McDonald's is coming into town. Like, everybody knows that that's being built, and everybody's wondering in the area when that's going to be open. And so why wouldn't you create that exposure? And so social media is kind of your dark night there, your white knight. I don't know how you want to say that. Your white knight, to be able to penetrate into the marketplace. And by the way, it's free. Social media is free. You can pay. Yeah, sure. You can pay ads. But to use social media early on in this day and age is an absolute must. Couple golden rules about social media. It's got to be personal. Nobody gives a rat's about a meme that says, hey, my cat uses this toothbrush, or just stupid stuff. Like, everybody wants personal, very personal information. And so, which is why I say it's very hard to outsource social media. A lot of the marketing companies out there sell social media, and they really, how is someone supposed to replicate your message? How is someone supposed to replicate your vision and what you're going to do for your community? You just can't do it. And I find that they, it's very branded. It's just very generic, and people can tell. Social media is all about being genuine. I kind of get tired of the selfies, but it is known that selfies are what people want to see statistically. Videos are going to work better than still shots. Still shots, it should be you. If it's not you, it should be about your practice. But it's all about the messaging. Okay. Let's see here. I wanted to give you an example of a great example of this. I had a startup in Colorado. Never forget. You have to find a way. By the way, just doing social media doesn't get you the results. You have to actually invest in it. It's what you put in is what you'll get out. And this sunset story I'm going to share with you is a startup that I worked with. And he posted on Facebook, hey, everyone, I'm setting up my practice in West Arvada, and I'm having a hard time choosing my banner picture of Arvada on my main website. Can you all in the area send me pictures of Arvada? And tons of people submitted their photos. He used one of their photos to put on his website. That's a great example of how you would incorporate the community into what you're doing. And this was before he was even open. Okay. That dude, he did 30,000 his first month. And most of those people came from Facebook groups, neighborhoods. So utilize it, use it as a tool. Social media can be difficult for people, but when it's for your business, it's actually kind of fun. Use hashtags. If you don't understand how hashtags work, use hashtags to make it so it's geo specific. What I mean by that is if you just posted a bunch of stuff, you could find followers from all over the country. But what you're really interested in are patients in your community. So you got to find the top hashtags. And I could tell you all about that, but do your research on how that works. Okay, so social media and get exposure as soon as humanly possible. Game changer 2, similar but different. It's called grassroots marketing or ground marketing. And I was a little quick on the draw, but I shared in the chat one of my favorite podcasts called The Dental Marketer. And this dude talks about ground marketing. It's his whole It's his whole podcast, and I like it. I follow him. I think he's spot on, and it's something that I try to get every single one of my startups to do. Gone are the days that you could just put up a shingle, as they say, set up a website or set up a dental office, and people just show up. Sure, Steve might be able to get you a First and Main intersection, and you're going to get a ton of exposure, but you're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for it out the nose. And so gone are the days where you can just set up shop and get a ton of patients. And so what I would suggest is you need to not only do social and get your exposure right, but you need to approach small businesses, local businesses, anybody really that you think might be interested in a new dentist or a new relationship with a dentist. Okay. So you need to think, like, when you step outside of your new office, do you see a gym? Do you see a bank? Do you see a hair salon, a CPA? You got to think, who can I partner with in this area, and how can I get their employees or even their clients to come into my office? This is the differentiator that everybody, this is the hard stuff, but this is the stuff that works. Just putting up a website up, doing Google ads, hiring someone to do your social media, you're not going to be nearly as successful unless you do some of these grassroots efforts. So think about what you could give the gym and what you want to get out of it. Make sure you leave a sign-up form. Ask for the business. You could do a raffle or a contest, but you really want to get creative. Think about a condo where you could approach the real estate agents that sell those condos right beside your practice. Every new person that they sell a condo to, send them a little champagne basket saying, "Welcome to the hood. I'd love to give you free whitening. Get over into my practice." You have to do that, and that's what will really set you up for success in the first, call it 1 to 2 months of opening. The other thing that I want to stress is membership and savings plans. There was a lot of people on our webinar tonight that are Pacific Northwest. You want to be a little sensitive to calling them the wrong thing, but savings plan, membership plan, these are ways that you can use a membership plan to approach a small business owner and say, "Hey, do you want to offer dental benefits to your employees?" and work deals with small businesses in the area by offering them this membership plan. We can chat more about that if you're not familiar with membership plans. But again, you think real estate, restaurants, hairdressers, small professionals like myself. I don't have insurance. I would love to partner with a local dental office and take my employees over to them. Nail salons, children's toys. I say that because there were some specialists in the crowd. Think about the pedos in the room that maybe could do a special deal with a toy store, a local toy store. You really do got to get creative, and you really do need to be that networker to its fullest. Okay, last game changer. Print is back. Yes, it is back. There's I call it the COVID effect. Mail is exciting these days. At least it definitely wasn't in COVID. And when we were all locked down, it was like, oh, our only interaction to the world was what that white number 10 envelope was, right? I'm finding that people are getting a lot of traction from postcards again. I like it because it's trackable. You can put a phone number that's different than the rest of your phone numbers that are track the calls and record the calls. You can see how many you've missed, how many you actually scheduled. The rule of thumb and the statistics that I've gotten from it is for every $1 you spend in print, you'll get 3 times that in gross production, not net production, but gross. If you track it through a 12-month period, and that's key. If you get a brand new patient, they do the cleaning, x-ray, exam, then the next cleaning would also be within that 12-month window. You have to look at a 12-month snapshot, and we track all of that spend in a 12-month period on every marketing strategy we do. but I'm finding a 3-to-1 ROI on that. There's usually got to be a give on that print. So maybe a gift card or a credit for folks that don't have dental insurance. There's got to be a reason why, if I'm on the fence or I don't like my dentist, give me a reason to come to you. And it might just be $25. I find that $50 works better than 25. I find that 100 works better than 50. But there's got to be a give, something to get somebody off the couch. I'll share a statistic. 44% of individuals in the United States did not utilize a dentist last year. And I don't think that's a COVID thing. I think that's just folks just aren't going to the dentist. That shouldn't surprise you. Little side note, people will be like, pay-per-click is so much better than print, blah, 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 blah. I hear you. They say it's 10 times more. But I will tell you, in all the practices that we manage, yes, you might actually get 10 times the response. But some of them are robots calling your phone numbers. Some of those are your current patients looking to find you, and they click on that and they call you, and they're actually asking you for directions. There's a lot of noise in that data. And so I would challenge you, to truly track, like we do for all of our clients, everything that you spend, the ROI on everything that you spend. And guess what? If print isn't going to work in your area, because I'm not saying it's going to work in everybody's area, but track it so that you know it doesn't work. So that you, and if it does work, you can double down. But I always say for my startups, make sure you try it all and track it all and see what does work in your area. I'm just finding that with COVID right now, mail is working. Okay, I could literally talk for hours about that. I'm going to paste something. I don't have time to play this video, unfortunately, but the next segment of my presentation is about new patient experience. That's your link. I want you all to save that. It'll take you right to this video. Bobby Stuckley is a famous restaurant owner in Colorado. I just mentioned Colorado twice tonight. The dude gets it, and he discusses this thing called hospitality versus customer service, and there is a difference between the two. Okay. Again, if you're going to spend all this effort to drive new patients through the door, and then you trip at this step, you've wasted it all. You've wasted all the money that you spent on the print or pay-per-click or all the social media posts or everything. If you don't execute a new patient or a great patient experience, it's all for nothing. It's absolutely all for nothing. And this is how those startups win in tight demographic type spots. We were talking about someone from the Bay Area asked, and you know, there are some pockets that are very competitive, just like in the Pacific Northwest, but this is how you win right here. Okay, so service is something that you do for somebody. So if I were to, Bobby talks about if he were to deliver a plate of pasta that's set up perfection, it's just beautiful presentation, but it's something that you do for somebody. Versus hospitality is how you make somebody feel. It's how you make someone feel. So sure, you could do something to make somebody feel, but that's where an experience really happens. Okay. I'm going to share with you the peanut butter jelly story. So I took my kids out just not too recently. I took them to this little store, and it was just like this little cafe. And my daughter and my son, I got them the same exact lunch, and it was peanut butter and jelly sandwich, goldfish, and fruit. Okay. And my son is 3 years old, and my daughter is now five years old. 5 years. Yeah. So a little age difference. But for those of you that may have kids, there is a difference between a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, or even a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And for those of you on the horn that know the difference, is the server brought out the food, and it was great, and we loved it, and it was perfect for the kids. That was the doing part. But then The person that prepped the food came over to my table and said, did I get the prep right for your little one? And that's when I realized for the 3-year-old, she cut the grapes in force and she took off all of the skin of the oranges and she did the crust just perfect for the 3-year-old, but different for the 5-year-old. She noticed that they were different ages and prepped his plate, although they were identical plates of food. His was different because he was a 3-year-old. How do you think that made me feel as the dad? It was epic. It was perfect. It was next level, as we say at my firm. So that is the difference. And so you really need to think about how you are going to differentiate yourself in your practice. Okay. And it starts with the call. Literally, it is the first impression. You do all this external marketing and then they call and you're like, hello. Yeah, we're open. Yeah, we do crowns here. Yeah, they're $1,200. Like, come on. Like, no, the first impression is everything. There's got to be a ton of energy. You got to be smiling on the phone. You got to honor that they chose you. Thank you. You've got lots of options. Thank you for choosing us. You got to find a way to build rapport on the phone. You have to listen before speaking. These are general rules of just being a decent person, but they're extra when they're new patients, right? You got to listen more because they're going to tell you what you want. You just have to deliver what they're asking you to deliver. And the only way you can do that is if you're listening. You got to create value outside of just the norm. I always ask our practices, what makes you guys different than that guy, literally right across the street? And they always say, oh, we treat our patients like family. Well, what's that mean? Oh, we call them by their first name. You don't think that guy's saying the exact same thing? Of course. The difference is you're bringing over blankets because Susie every time comes in is cold. And before she even asks, you drop the blanket. That's family, right? So it's how you deliver this, right? I'm going to keep going for the sake of time. After you get them into the practice and you knock out the call out of the park, then it's your look. It's what are you doing once they're there? And I love when doctors call before they even show up, by the way, and say, hey, thank you for choosing us. I'm Dr. So-and-so. Is there anything I need to know about you? We want to provide you excellent 5-star, and you're already dropping 5-star because you want them to review. We want to give you 5-star experience. So I'm just calling to make sure that everything's ready to go and that we're ready to go for you. And is there anything I need to know about you before you come in? That's next level, right? Communication style, match and mirror. Be on time. I can't stress this enough. People sitting in the lobby, if I got to sit in the lobby, like I'm a busy dude. I don't want to be hanging out in your waiting room, especially during COVID. Even 15 minutes, I'm sitting there staring at my clock the whole time. That's rude, right? So be on time. Know their story. Why are they coming in? Birthdays, anniversaries, know their story. Follow-ups. Biggest pitfall, follow-ups. Most common pitfall in every practice is your follow-through. It's the thank you letter that you send. Thank you for choosing us. It's an email or a call, but just checking in on you. How was everything? And it's not clinical. You guys do post-op calls. I'm talking about the experience follow-up. Okay. Again, powering through this to respect all your all's time. Hiring right. We could probably talk about that offline. Reach out. I do want to leave 5 minutes for Q&A. I wanted to highlight my podcast specifically on startups. We have a lot of fun on it. We're walking through people through startup from literally start to finish. I'm going to give you all a link here that takes you right to it. Please subscribe, check it out. But John Bertagni and my co-host, we actually interviewed Steve. Steve was a great guest of ours. But get on our podcast. and experience it. We are literally talking to all of you about literally the first step all the way through each episode, and we're having a ton of fun. With that, I'll leave the screen up for a minute because I definitely powered through that. Steve, help us out with the Q&A, or got everyone. I've been presenting, you guys have been reading. Let's everybody go off mute and start answering some of these questions.
Real quick, you guys should check out Mike's podcast. It's great. There's a lot of good people on there giving a lot of good insight. Check it out. It's worth your time. Looking at the questions.
I'll pay you for that later, Steve. Thanks.
All right, cool.
Okay, let's get into this. In a given
lease versus, oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Steve. Go.
Lease versus buy. If you can buy a building, that's awesome. Fantastic, but you're gonna need some more money down. And when you're doing a startup, it's a lot easier for the whole thing to pencil out, especially with the bank. If your overhead is a little bit lower, Matt, you can speak to that too. But in the long run, if you can buy a building, you should. But on the startup side, it's very difficult to make that pencil out.
Yeah, and it's, you know, if it pencils out, it pencils out, right? If the cash flow works, the cash flow works. The snag I think a lot of doctors hit, especially in the Puget Sound area, is the budgetary side of building something out, right? So if you're looking to build out 2,000 square feet, and you're gonna give up, you know, $100,000 to $150,000 of TI budget because your landlord's willing to invest in your office, that ends up being the biggest barrier to do it, right? So there's a variety of factors to consider on it. At the end of the day, just like I said when we were talking about you know, acquisition versus startup, there's no right or wrong answer either way, right? That's why you have to have a conversation with the folks on this call here, on this Zoom, to talk about the realities. What does it mean? What does it take to get it done? And then make a decision from that point.
Let me add into that, y'all, because there is a focus here in the Northwest with the three of you doing the majority of your deals. I'll throw in a geographical twist to that. Like I'm working with a Kansas startup right now, rural, dirt's cheap, buildings are cheap. It's going to pencil. So, you know, in very desirable locations like Seattle, Bellevue, like we were kind of talking tonight, yeah, it's going to be a tough one. But if you can get into a building, the answer is yes, because that's an asset that's going to depreciate or appreciate. And you know, areas that are rural and cheap, and you're able to get into it for a lower investment, then that's an easy one. That's an easy one. What else?
The majority of my clients, sorry, Matt, I cut you off, but the majority of the clients that are doing startups will lease a space first, and at some point in the future, look at trying to buy a building.
That's right.
Absolutely. And figure out a game plan for the existing lease if there's a term left. But we do look at that for sure.
I got a question here. Do you have any people in Southern California? I'll speak for all of us. Steve, you got people in California. Dustin, you're limited a little bit to the Pacific Northwest. Matt, of course, is representing Bank of America. That's a no-brainer. And yes, I go to Southern California. So
you answered, that's where I was going to, since we were talking about geography, right? Really, it doesn't matter if you live in the Northwest now, if you're joining us from another part of the country, if you're going to relocate anywhere in the country. But for generally speaking, reach out to us here, and we will have the ability to help you directly or have resources to help you in those markets.
Typical ROI and for upscale remodel versus value engineering. And this, Dustin, you can jump in here. That's a tough question to answer because there's so many factors.
Right, the ROI of an upscale build versus value engineering.
Well, okay. So,
the return on investment is based on the doctor.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that you're going to get much return on your investment for having a more aesthetically higher end practice than not. it's all going to come down to the budget and what kind of practice you want to own and live in. I think that there are a lot of opportunities where we have value engineering offices that later on become the higher end upscale offices because we got them in very nice office. A few bells and whistles were saved for later on when you're cash flowing. So I don't think that's going to increase your rate of return.
So let's put it this way. This is the way I would answer that question. So ROI means a lot of could mean a lot of different things the way you slice it, and then having a priority of what's going to be most important to you is key in determining that. If you're going to go high end on finishes at the sacrifice of a chair or a second chair in a new office in a new business starting from scratch, that may not be the wisest investment in your business, regardless of what your business is. So it's all about what you're sacrificing to get there. At the end of the day, if you don't have enough chairs to have enough patient flow to do what you need to do, then yeah, the ROI is going to hurt on your finishes. But if you have a balance and you can get to that third chair, and that's kind of a magic number here, and Mike can touch on that, having a third chair as opposed to two makes a big difference in the beginning. So if you're sacrificing that third operatory for the sake of some finishes, we might want to talk about the how and the why behind that.
I love that answer, Matt.
Yeah.
We've got one question here that I really want to touch on, and then we're probably going to close this down for the sake of time. We get this a lot, and I know the team on the call right now will be passionate about this. What are some considerations that you feel are important and unique when approaching a failing or underproducing practice in comparison to a startup? What I love about this question is this is clearly someone that's thinking about acquisition versus startup. I have a very very clear answer here. When you're looking at a failing business, there's a lot of hair on that, and you don't get all of the benefits that you might get doing a startup when you buy a failing business. Financing is one piece. Real estate is definitely one piece. Dustin, of course, you're not going to get a new, clean look, feel fresh, environment. And so there is a lot of benefits. If I'm doing a continuum here, a lot of benefits here for doing a startup: free rent, graduated payments, lots of working capital, great demographics. You get to choose your space. You get to choose your team. I could keep going on. If you're looking at a failing business, you're literally trying to figure out how to put lipstick on a pig, try to get a loan, and that can be difficult for a failing practice. You might not get any free rent or any concessions from landlord because they know we could probably talk about this from all four of us roundtable here and how bad that could be for you from a failing business perspective. So to me, it's a slam dunk go startup versus a failing business. Now, if we're talking about a practice producing 2 million and throwing off another $1 million versus a startup, and you can handle the production, that's an easy decision for me. But there aren't a lot of practices like that. And I'm going to tell you right now, my business was very heavy acquisition 8 months ago. It is completely flipped to very heavy startup. And it's because there are not a lot of great practices for sale right now. And a lot of you on this call are just tired of not owning your practice. So does anybody else want to comment on this as kind of final thoughts as we go around the rim?
You summed it up pretty succinctly there, Mike. You're right. The opportunity to get into practice ownership right now is leaning startup heavy, and there's a lot of reasons why. You touched on them all right there at a high level. And offline, and as we have follow-up conversations to this, we can get down into the weeds on each specific situation. At the end of the day, more is lost by indecision than getting off the sideline and putting your plan into play.
Anybody else? Steve, from a lease perspective, when you're going into a failing business versus scratch start?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of terrible existing practices with horrible leases that are overpriced. There's no terms left. They're on a month to month. You got to square that away before you bite that off. My colleagues sell practices, and there's a lot of great practices out there. And not as many right now, but occasionally there's some really nice practices out there, and those are great. But if you're going to go that route, you have to understand it's not just there's going to be some stuff there, and you have to be strong enough to work through them and try to identify the issues and figure them out. If you keep on finding that every practice has an issue and you can't get past that, it could be more you, to be honest. But maybe you should be looking at a startup. This is an opportunity to build your own thing, build your own team, make it look new. I never see really, really nice looking offices for sale for $600,000, right? You have an opportunity to build a brand new office in the year 2021 and make it look beautiful, attract new patients. So
yeah. Well, with that being said, we have totally gone over, and we apologize, but so many great questions tonight. I loved the participation. This video will be live soon. If you missed it or wanted to recap, because I know Dustin and I really powered through there quickly. So if you want to get a refresh there, it'll be posted. But I speak for the rest of the group in saying, when we put contact information in the chat box, reach out to us. We love what we do. I don't speak for the group. We all love what we do. We just want to help. Whether you're a fit or not a fit, it's totally fine. And I can speak for all of us. We're all very busy, and we're blessed. We would love to be in your team, on your roster. But if we're not, that's okay. But you can tell in the passion of all of us that we just want to help. And that's the bottom line here. And so please reach out. You're going to get a series of emails after, just to rank us, give us some suggestions. If you want any four of us to reach out, please put that in the survey. And I'll leave it there. Gentlemen, I really appreciate all of you and what you brought to this program, and we'll do it again here very soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Be well.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.